Sarah, I swear it. I'll find a place where the ground itself keeps the cold away forever.
He walked until the graveyard was a gray smudge. Ahead, a hill bled steam into the winter sky. The locals called it the Devil's Hill, ground that boiled in January, that never held snow. They said it was cursed. Jed pushed his muzzle into a warm fissure and didn't flinch. His tail wagged once. David knelt and pressed his palm flat. The earth was alive with heat. He didn't wait. He drove the first stake while the town watched from below, too afraid to climb.
Let them call it cursed. This ground will be my hearth.
By dusk, the frame of a cabin stood where no one had dared build for a generation. Jed curled on the bare dirt near the vent and didn't stir. The cold had already lost.
We're home, Sarah. The cold can't follow us here.
Inside the town meeting hall, Elder Tompkins' voice cut through the smoke and whispers.
That fool on the Devil's Hill is ripping open ground that's been shut for a reason.
Let him. Ain't our bones that'll be baked by whatever's underneath.
They climbed the hill in a tight knot and found David setting a floor beam over steaming earth.
You are inviting death onto us all. That hill has no mercy.
I've already met the worst kind of cold. This is just warmth.
They withdrew, muttering. But Tompkins stopped at the edge and spat. We'll remember this. That night, David dug deeper and uncovered a fissure pulsing with orange embers. In the settlement below, Martha held her boy as a dry cough tore through his chest.
The hill strikes back. That man disturbed it, and now the boy pays. I told you all.
It's not just warm. Something's burning under there, alive and waiting.
He cut a square hole in the rough floorboards and lowered a tin plate to catch the rising heat.
Hot enough to warp tin. This isn't stray warmth. It's a furnace.
Jed didn't move from the bare patch. His coat steamed gently in the cold air. A rotted post emerged from the snow, a rusted tag still hanging from a nail.
Coal seam. So the old miners pulled out when it caught fire, and it's been burning ever since.
He hammered a tin pipe through the floor, directing the hot breath of the earth into a single column. The pipe threw a steady current of warmth that filled the single room and chased the frost from the glass.
I've traded one grave for another, but this time, the grave is warm.
By the time the stove would have burned through its first cord, the cabin had no need of firewood. One morning, he woke with a head full of fog and the taste of ash in his throat.
The fire breathes poison. I need to give it a chimney or it'll smother me.
He ran a rusted stovepipe from the floor vent straight up through the roof, turning the cabin into a lung. Outside, the snow melted back 20 feet. Steam columns rose day and night, a beacon on the cursed hill. In the settlement, Frank swung his axe into the last dry log with a bitter curse.
If winter bites any harder, we'll be burning our own bones. And that Devil Hill man sleeps warm.
Elder Tompkins climbed the ridge alone and stared at the smoking hill, his old face unreadable.
The old books warned of ground that never cools. He'll learn, but too late for the rest of us.
David packed mud and straw into every crack, sealing the cabin tight against the bitter air, the warm earth his only hearth.
I've made a bargain with the fire. So long as it stays below, I don't freeze, but it's never a gift. It's a truce.
A windless night let the fumes pool thick and low. David woke choking, crawling for the door.
The vent was too slow. I need to bleed the poison out even when the air is still.
He hammered a weighted tin flap above the floor pipe, a damper that lifted with the gas, then fell shut.
Now the cabin breathes on its own, but the fire is a jealous guest.
In the settlement below, families fed broken chairs into their stoves. The forest was stripped bare. Frank chopped an old door into kindling, his face a mask of disbelief. David sowed onion and potato cuttings into the steaming ground beyond his door. Within days, green broke the brown.
Life pushing up from a dead man's grave. Sarah would have smiled.
Jed stretched out over the warmest spot and didn't stir, his tail thumping once in his sleep.
I've made a home in the mouth of a dragon, but I am still the only one who dares look inside.
Half buried in snow, the old mine office still held a drawer of geological surveys, brittle as dead leaves.
This isn't a new fire. It's been burning since before the town was founded.
The survey map showed a coal seam running the length of the hill, marked with a note. Fire ignited 1863, still burning.
All that time, they ran from the truth. And now the truth is my floorboard.
He walked the perimeter, pressing a sharpened stake where the ground grew dangerously hot, marking the fire's creeping edge. 12 paces from his door, the earth glowed orange in a deep fissure. It was closer than the week before. In the settlement below, Martha's boy Thomas couldn't stop coughing. The cold had seeped into his lungs past every blanket.
That hill smokes like an open wound. If it killed him, we'd be rid of it, but it hasn't killed him yet. And that frightens me.
The fire doesn't care about my garden or my promise. It only cares about fuel.
Before sleep, he sketched a rough line on the survey map, a moat wide enough to starve the fire of new coal. At first light, David drove a pick into the steaming earth and broke open a trench 2 feet wide.
The fire eats forward. This trench is the only thing between it and my door.
Snowmelt and steam hissed where the hot ground met the cold. The moat took the fire's breath. He strung rope along the stakes he'd driven, marking the boundary where the fire must not cross. At night, he walked the line with a lantern, the orange glow of the fire front pulsing just beyond the rope. One bitter morning, Elder Tompkins appeared at the edge of the warm ground, shoulders hunched against the cold.
The boy's coughing blood. His mother can't sleep for the cold. Is there nothing?
You told me this hill has no mercy. Now you ask for some?
He turned away, and the old man's silhouette shrank in the steam. But the silence that followed was heavier than any curse.
They cast me out. If I open this door, I open it to everything. The town, the danger, the blame.
Midnight brought a sharp crack. A section of the moat wall collapsed inward, and the fire rolled forward with a lunging glow.
It found a seam. I need 2 more feet of depth before it slips under the cabin.
He swung the pick until his shoulders screamed. The trench deepened inch by inch, steam and ash mixing in the dark. The new cut filled with meltwater, hissing as it met the fire's edge, a temporary moat of cold. At dawn, he saw 2 figures at the tree line. Martha clutching Thomas, staring at the smoking hill.
She won't come closer, but she won't stop hoping I'll break.
The fire crept within 6 feet of the garden. Onion tops wilted at the edges, their green browning overnight.
Sarah's smile is burning away, and I am holding the shovel too slow.
Jed bolted upright near the vent and gave a low, steady growl at the floorboards.
The fire's no longer beneath me, it's beside me, and I'm running out of ground to give.
He followed a fissure that ran south like a vein of fire, glowing beneath a crust of snow.
The map was wrong. This fire has been eating the whole hill for decades. I am sitting on a thinning island.
The stakes he'd driven marked a perimeter. The fire had already swallowed in a slow, silent march. That same hour, Tompkins came again. Not alone. Martha carried Thomas, white as the snow.
He's dying. Not from your hill. From the cold, we've got nothing left to fight.
You called this place cursed. Now you want its warmth?
I don't care what it is. I only care that my boy breathes.
Thomas slid from her arms, folding into the snow like a rag doll.
Sarah told me no one should die of cold, not even an enemy.
David gripped the door frame until his knuckles whitened, Jed whining at his side. He lifted the boy and carried him to the vent, laying him on the warm boards like an offering.
Breathe, son. The ground's got heat enough for you.
He's breathing. Oh, God. He's opening his eyes.
Eat and rest. You are both staying.
I'll go back and tell the others what you've done. Maybe it softens something.
He stepped outside and saw the fire's orange tongue licking up through the moat's edge, 20 feet away.
It won't stop for a breathing boy or a mother's tears. The fire only knows fuel.
David closed the door and knelt by the vent, stretching his hands over the heat, a sentinel at the mouth of hell. Outside, the blizzard howled, but the cabin held its pocket of warmth, a stubborn flame against the freeze.
I've opened the door. Now I have to keep the fire from walking through it.
That night, the hill bled a red scar across the snow, 100 yards of ember glow pushing toward the cabin.
I cracked the seam wider, digging my vent. Now the fire breathes faster, and it's breathing toward my door.
At dawn, a delegation climbed the steaming hill. Tompkins, Frank, and 3 shivering men.
The boy's warm. You've got a stove? No, there's no stove here. This place is a furnace.
Step outside with me, Frank. I'll show you what's really under our boots. Coal seam, burning since the old mine collapsed. My moat's holding it back, but just barely.
You mean this cursed hill is just a coal fire, and you've been living on top of it?
What can be done? Can you stop it?
I can't kill a fire that's been burning 60 years, but I can starve it. We dig channels, vent the heat away, cut off its fuel. They don't trust me, but they're cold enough to listen. That might be all the opening I need.
The settlement had burned its last chair. Cold poured through every wall like a drowning tide.
If we do nothing, we'll be corpses by week's end. Marsh has a plan. I don't think we can afford to ignore it.
We dig channels to vent the heat away. They'll keep the fire back. We can even roof one for a communal shelter.
My wife can't feel her feet anymore. If there's a way, I'll dig it myself.
I still say the hill is cursed. But if we're all dead, what does the curse matter? Do it.
They gathered shovels, picks, and empty bellies, and followed David up the steaming hill.
Stake here and here. The fire moves east. We cut a main channel along this line, then feeder trenches.
The earth was warm under the snow, and the sound of metal on stone mixed with the hiss of steam.
We're not fighting the fire. We're taming it. Every shovelful of dirt is a breath of safety.
The red line still pulsed beyond the trench, but for the first time, David didn't stand alone. Without warning, a sheet of earth collapsed inward, and the fire licked through the trench like a searching tongue.
It's breaking for the cabin. If it reaches the floor vent, we lose everything.
What do we do? Marsh, what do we do?
Dig here, now. Cut a lateral trench and wet it down. Frank, grab the shovel.
The garden caught first, onions blackening in a sudden rush of heat, green shoots curling into ash.
Sarah's garden. But if I don't cut it off, the cabin follows. Hack through the garden. Sacrifice it, it's dirt or the door.
The fire hit wet stone and rock, hissing in frustration, then slid sideways into the new trench. For a long moment, no one spoke. Smoke rose from the blackened earth, but the cabin stood.
We bought a day, maybe 2, but they saw it can be turned. That changes everything.
The blizzard slammed into the hill without warning, a white wall that swallowed the channels and the men digging them. The roofed trench they had built as a communal shelter held off the snow, but not the killing cold.
It's not enough. The wind cuts right through. We'll freeze out here, same as anywhere.
David stood at his cabin door, the warm glow spilling out, and saw the faces of half-frozen children.
Sarah said to find a place where cold can't follow. She never said to keep it for myself.
Marsh, what are you?
Everyone inside, now. Carry the sick first. The fire won't hold the door shut for us.
They poured into the single room, 30 souls pressed together on the warm floorboards, old feuds forgotten in a breath of heat.
You opened the door when we called it cursed. I'll not forget.
The curse was always just heat. Nobody understood. Now rest. We'll keep it understanding tomorrow.
30 breaths pressed the air thick. David opened the damper flap and let the filling finish naturally.
Too many lungs. Not enough oxygen. The vent flap needs a wider swing.
He climbed onto the roof in the blizzard, prying the flap loose with frozen fingers.
I'll take the first watch. You've been on your feet since before the storm.
David nodded and slid back inside, the cold of the roof still biting his cheeks. The cabin held.
She would have thrown open every door. She always said warmth was for sharing.
Outside, the fire line halted. The trenches starved it of new coal, and the blizzard pressed a cold lid over the hill. I want you to build a home where the cold can't reach, and I want you to fill it with people.
You knew, Sarah. Even then, you knew I'd need others beside me.
The blizzard still roared, but inside, 30 hearts beat together, warmed by the earth's forgotten fire. On the third day, the last hard biscuit was halved 30 ways, and the wind still shook the walls. Outside, the fire's orange crawl had stalled. Snowmelt filled the trenches, and the ground hissed but did not burn.
It's starving. The coal seam burned through the shallow edge and moved deeper.
Snow still ringed the hill, but the melt line had doubled. The fire's front had pulled back 50 feet.
You said the fire moves on its own. Does that mean it's gone?
The fire consumed the coal under this side. It's burning deeper now, away from us.
The cabin had survived not because the fire was harmless, but because David had starved it of its meal.
Then we can go home? The cold won't follow us?
Number. But next winter, we'll build your houses over warm ground. No one freezes again.
The cursed hill had kept its first promise, warmth enough for all who dared share it. The sky cleared to a pale blue. On the steaming hill, 30 souls blinked at a world no longer at war with them.
For 60 years, we told a ghost story over a coal fire. Marsh didn't curse the hill. He just refused to be afraid of it.
The old man looked at David, and something in his face shifted from fear to shame.
I called you a fool. My wife's feet are warm now because of your fool's hill.
David ripped the old warning sign from the frozen ground and tossed it into the meltwater trench.
We'll put the first vent here. Run the pipe like this. The heat will rise, not the fumes.
For the first time, the townspeople carried timber up the hill, not to burn, but to build. Children ran barehanded over the warm, bare dirt, their laughter the first sound that old hill had ever welcomed.
Thomas hasn't coughed since the blizzard. The doctor said, it's like he's been sleeping in a summer kitchen.
They called it cursed. But maybe curses are just gifts we're too afraid to unwrap.
The ground where the garden had burned now pushed new shoots through blackened soil, green and relentless.
Sarah's garden, given back. She always said the earth remembers.
Words traveled to the East Valley. Men are coming to see a hill that warms without wood.
You'll need to draw them a map, Marsh. Show them where to dig and where to run.
David gathered wildflowers still damp with melt and walked to the graveyard on the hill's north slope.
I found the place, Sarah. The cold can't reach us anymore. And I filled it with people, like you said.
He knelt in the thawing grass and let the steam from a nearby vent drift over them, both.
No more graves in frozen ground. This hill will keep every promise I made.
The valley below was waking. New pipes crossed the snow, carrying heat to homes that had known only frost. David stood at last, Jed at his side, and looked at the steaming hill, no longer cursed, just understood. By late spring, a dozen frontiersmen climbed the steaming hill with questions. They had heard of ground that cured winter.
It's coal, burning slow for decades. We vent the heat and starve the flame. That's the whole secret.
Elder Tompkins opened the town ledger and struck through the word cursed, replacing it with Marsh's Hill.
Marsh's Hill. Better ring than Devil's Hill. Less chance of scaring the children.
The communal hall rose in a month, its floor warm year-round. Meetings that once argued over firewood now debated crop rotations.
Thomas runs barefoot in February. The doctor says he's never seen lungs heal so fast.
A managed danger. The fire that could have killed us now keeps the children warm. That's the only kind of curse worth having.
Tompkins closed the ledger. The curse was officially dead.
Remember when I said you'd be baked? Well, I was half right. You are baked in admiration.
By the time the snow melted for good, the name David Marsh was spoken with the same weight once reserved for winters. 1 year after the first snow, David stood on the same warm ground where Jed had first sniffed the heat.
I used to hear her voice in the wind, sharp and cold. Now it's in the steam, soft and constant. I kept my promise, Sarah. The ground is our hearth, and the cold can't follow anyone here.
Below, the town gathered for the first harvest from the warm gardens. tables of green in a valley that had known only famine.
Look at him, David. Last year, he couldn't lift his own head. Now he's chasing Jed through the onion beds.
That's what a warm floor can do, more than wood ever could.
When the feast ended and the children drowsed on the heated earth, David climbed the hill alone.
She never asked for a monument, just a warm place. This hill is her headstone now.
The dog sat at his side. The steam rose. The day's last light caught the valley, and every roof had a whisper of smoke from warm ground. Not cold. The promise had been kept. The cold no longer had a voice in the valley. Only the earth, warm and unrelenting, spoke now. Where the old warning sign once stood, new cabins rose like stones around a hearth, their vents breathing steam into the spring air. The latest cabin stood on a spot David had marked with his old survey map, safe, stable, and warm. The map had grown. Generations would know where to build and where to let the fire pass.
The curse wasn't the fire. It was forgetting what our ancestors learned. You made us remember.
David walked the perimeter with a young orphan whose parents had frozen in the Great Freeze, the boy's small hand learning the feel of safe ground.
Warm here. See how the snow melts early? That's where you'll put your floorboards.
The child pressed his palm to the earth and smiled for the first time since the winter.
The hill keeps giving. Not just warmth, second chances.
By the time the first wildflowers opened, the cursed hill had become home to anyone willing to learn from the fire instead of flee. David and Jed stood on the highest vent, the young orphan beside them, as a new day warmed the valley. 20 winters came and went, and the hill never froze. David's beard grayed, but the ground stayed warm as the day he'd first knelt. Below, the valley had grown into a settlement of warm homes, every rooftop venting steam instead of smoke.
Sarah would have stood right here. This was her dream, just given to my hands.
He stopped at the highest vent, the same one he dug on the first winter's day. It still gave heat without asking. The cold that had chased him all his life had finally stopped. It never reached this hill. He knelt, pressed his palm to the warm earth, and closed his eyes. The fire below beat steady, like a heart. His promise was no longer a vow spoken to a grave. It was a village that no longer feared winter. David Marsh, an old man with a loyal dog, watched the sun rise over the hill that turned a curse into a blessing, and the ground, warm and unrelenting, kept him company until the light faded. At the base of the hill, the new children of Marsh's Hill ran barefoot over ground that had once been called cursed.